Have you ever wondered why Allah has so many names? Why the one who is beyond all form chose to reveal himself through 1,000 forms of beauty and power? Ar-Rahman, Al-Qahhar, Al-Latif, Al-Hakim. Ibn Arabi said that each of these names is not just a word, it is a doorway, a key to understanding the very heart of existence. Every joy you feel, every wound you carry, every breath you take, all are mirrors reflecting one of his names. But here's the secret few ever realize. Behind all these names, behind every reflection, there is only one light, one beloved. Ibn Arabi called it the hidden ocean of oneness, where every wave, every sound, every experience returns to its source. In this journey, we're going to step into that ocean to uncover what Ibn Arabi truly meant by the secret of Allah's names, and how knowing them can awaken the divine within you. Ibn Arabi often described creation as a vast ocean of mirrors, each reflecting a different ray of the divine light. He believed that everything we see, every face, every sound, every movement of the wind, is a reflection of one of Allah's names. Yet, most people stop at the surface, seeing only the forms without perceiving the reality behind them. The true seeker, he said, learns to look through the form to the meaning shining within it. When you witness mercy, you are seeing the manifestation of Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate. When you encounter justice, it is Al-Ad, the just, revealing himself through balance and truth. When you feel light guiding you in the dark, it is An-Nur, the light of the heavens and the earth. Ibn Arabi's insight was that the universe itself is not a random collection of things, but a living revelation, every particle bearing a divine name, every moment whispering, "This is Allah." To him, life was not about escaping the world, but awakening within it, recognizing that behind every form, there is a face, the face of the One. For Ibn Arabi, the names of Allah are not simply descriptions to be memorized. They are living realities, gateways into divine experience. Each name holds a particular energy, a specific fragrance of the divine essence. To say Ar-Rahim is to invite mercy to unfold through your being. To remember Al-Hadi, the guide, is to awaken direction and clarity within your heart. The act of remembrance is not mechanical repetition. It is a tuning of the soul to the frequency of that name. Ibn Arabi warned that those who know the names only by sound remain at the outer gate, but those who embody the names through intention and awareness enter the inner court of the divine presence. When a person lives Al-Karim, generosity flows naturally from their hands. When they embody As-Sabur, patience becomes effortless. Each name, when practiced, transforms the seeker's character until they no longer merely speak of Allah, they reflect Him. Ibn Arabi taught that the human heart is the most sacred mirror in existence, the place where the divine names can be fully revealed. But this mirror, he said, is often covered with the dust of ego, fear, and attachment. The task of the seeker is not to build anything new, but to polish the heart until it shines again. Through remembrance, service, and sincerity, the rust begins to fall away, and the light of the divine names starts to appear within. Mercy, wisdom, love, and majesty all begin to radiate from the polished heart, as if the divine is looking through human eyes. Ibn Arabi compared the heart to a lamp. Allah is the light, and the heart is the vessel. When the vessel is pure, the light shines without distortion. The journey of Sufism, therefore, is not an escape from the world, but a return to clarity. To see that the names of Allah are not only in the sky or scripture, but alive within the very depths of your being. Ibn Arabi revealed one of the most profound truths in the path of Sufism, the balance of the divine names. He taught that Allah is not known through one quality alone, but through the perfect harmony of all his names. To know him only as Ar-Rahman, the Most Merciful, and to forget Al-Qahhar, the Subduer, is to see only one side of the divine face. The names are like colors in a spectrum, each distinct, yet together they form the single white light of his perfection. When a seeker becomes attached to only one aspect of Allah, only the sweetness of mercy, or only the sharpness of justice, the vision becomes incomplete. The true knower walks the middle path, recognizing that both tenderness and severity, giving and taking, life and death, all arise from the same divine reality. In Ibn Arabi's understanding, existence itself unfolds through the balance of these names. If the world were ruled only by mercy, there would be no order, no distinction, no growth. If it were ruled only by power, nothing could survive its intensity. Creation stands because Ar-Rahman and Al-Qahhar meet and embrace. This balance is reflected in everything, in the expansion and contraction of your breath, in the cycles of day and night, in the alternation of joy and sorrow. Every heartbeat is a rhythm of opposites, the pulse of giving and receiving, love and awe, gentleness and might. Ibn Arabi saw this rhythm as the very heartbeat of God's names moving through time. He often spoke about the two hands of the divine, the right hand of beauty Jamal and the left hand of majesty Jalal. Beauty softens, majesty strengthens. Beauty invites you to rest in love. Majesty compels you to stand in awe. The seeker who knows only beauty becomes fragile, lost in comfort and sentiment. The one who knows only majesty becomes harsh, unable to taste compassion. But the one who stands between them, who lets the heart bow in awe and rise in love, becomes balanced, complete, and alive with the full light of the divine. Ibn Arabi wrote that this is the meaning of the Prophet's words, "My Lord has educated me and made my education most excellent." For the Prophet embodied both Rahma, mercy, and Haqq, truth, the gentleness that forgives and the strength that upholds justice. To live in the balance of the names means to accept every state that comes to you as part of your spiritual training. When joy enters your life, it is Al-Karim, the generous, showering you with his grace. When pain arrives, it is Al-Hakim, the wise, shaping you through hidden wisdom. When you lose something dear, it is Al-Kabid, the withholder, reminding you that nothing belongs to you but him. And when new doors open, it is Al-Basit, the expander, drawing your heart into gratitude. Every moment, he contracts and expands, hides and reveals, tests and comforts. And each of these movements teaches a different name. Ibn Arabi said, "The Gnostic is the one who recognizes the name by which God manifests in every instant and bows before it." In this understanding, hardship is no longer a punishment, but a mirror of divine majesty. Ease is no longer a reward, but a mirror of divine beauty. Both are lessons, both are gifts. When something is taken from you, Al-Mumit, the giver of death, is teaching detachment. When something is born in you, a new understanding, a new hope, Al-Muhi, the giver of life, is whispering renewal. The names flow through your days, like waves in an endless ocean, sometimes soft and glowing, sometimes fierce and storming. To live spiritually, Ibn Arabi said, is to learn how to sail, to trust the wind of the names and the wisdom of the tide. He explained that imbalance occurs when the seeker clings to one name and resists another. Some people love only the gentle names, Ar-Rahman, Al-Latif, Al-Wujud, and flee from the names of power and might, like Al-Jabbar or Al-Muntaqim. But this selective devotion fragments the truth. Allah is not only the one who caresses, He is also the one who corrects. Both acts come from love. The fire that burns also purifies. The storm that frightens also clears the path. Ibn Arabi would often remind his students that when Allah removes, He is giving in another form, and when He gives, He is testing your gratitude. Thus, the balanced heart neither complains nor becomes arrogant, for it recognizes the same hand in all circumstances. He saw this balance reflected in the life of the universe itself. The sun shines by the name An-Nur, but its fire burns by the name Al-Jalil. The rain falls by Ar-Razak, the provider, yet the thunder rolls by Al-Mu'iz, the exalter of power. The earth nourishes through Al-Latif, the subtle one, but shakes through Al-Qahhar, the overwhelming. Everywhere, opposites live side by side, not in conflict, but in harmony. The one who sees only opposites perceives duality. The one who sees their unity perceives tawhid, the ownness behind all contrasts. Ibn Arabi described the heart of the perfected human, Il-Insan al-Kamal, as the meeting place of all the names. Within such a heart, beauty and majesty no longer compete, they complete each other. Mercy strengthens justice. Justice protects mercy. Love becomes intelligent. Power becomes compassionate. When the names balance within you, your soul becomes a mirror of divine equilibrium. This is not an abstract state. It expresses itself in how you live. You become soft without weakness, firm without cruelty, humble without self-denial, radiant without pride. You walk through the world neither broken by its storms nor intoxicated by its gifts, because you have learned that both come from the same source. This balance is the foundation of adab, spiritual etiquette. It teaches you to respond, not react, to accept, not escape. When someone harms you, you may remember as-Sabur, the patient, and respond with restraint. When you see injustice, you remember Al-Qahhar and stand for truth. When you succeed, you recall Al-Mutakabbir and remain humble. When you fail, you recall Al-Ghaffar and forgive yourself. Every situation becomes an opportunity to live one of the names, to mirror the divine in the details of your human story. Ibn Arabi's teaching of balance was never merely intellectual, it was deeply personal. He wrote that the seeker's path is not linear, but circular. Every name leads to another, and the circle never ends. One moment, you are the receiver of mercy. The next, you are the instrument of it. One day, you are broken by loss. The next, you are healed by wisdom. Through these changing reflections, the divine educates your heart. And when you finally stop dividing experience into good and bad, gain and loss, joy and sorrow, you begin to see what Ibn Arabi saw, that everything is Him. To live in this awareness is to rest in the heart of balance itself. You no longer chase only the light or fear the shadow, for both are expressions of the same eternal presence. You realize that Allah's names are not in conflict but in conversation, each revealing the other, each guiding you toward a more complete love. This is the secret Ibn Arabi wanted his students to taste, that the whole of life is the dance of the divine names. Beauty bowing to majesty, mercy embracing power, the infinite expressing itself through the endless balance of the real. And when you see this clearly, peace descends, not the fragile peace that depends on comfort, but the deep peace that comes from seeing every moment as a perfect reflection of the One. Ibn Arabi saw the human being as the grandest mystery of all creation, the one creature capable of reflecting all of Allah's names. Everything in existence, he wrote, reveals a fragment of the divine, but only humanity carries the potential to mirror the entire spectrum of the divine attributes. The angels reflect purity and obedience. The mountains reflect strength. The oceans reflect vastness. The stars reflect glory. But the human heart, when awakened, reflects them all. In the Quran, Allah says, "We taught Adam the names of all things." Ibn Arabi understood this not as mere knowledge of words, but as the divine gift of capacity, the ability within the human spirit to recognize, manifest, and harmonize every name of Allah. You and I, he would say, are walking reflections of the infinite. The tragedy is not that we are small. The tragedy is that we forget how immense our reflection truly is. To Ibn Arabi, the human being stands at the center of existence, a bridge between the visible and the unseen, between the finite and the infinite. The physical body connects us to the earth, while the soul connects us to the heavens. In this sacred balance, humanity becomes a mirror in which God contemplates his own names. This is the meaning of the famous saying from the divine hadith, "I was a hidden treasure, and I loved to be known, so I created creation that I might be known." Through us, the hidden treasure is revealed. Every human being, therefore, is a verse of that revelation, unique, irreplaceable, and sacred. Some reflect his mercy, some his strength, some his wisdom, and some his beauty. But the potential of the complete human, al-insan al-kamil, the perfect human, is to reflect them all in balance, harmony, and awareness. This is why Ibn Arabi considered the human heart the true throne of Allah. He said that the divine cannot be contained by the heavens or the earth, but he is contained by the heart of the one who knows him. When the heart becomes purified of ego and filled with remembrance, it turns into a polished mirror in which the divine gazes upon himself. Every act of love, every moment of patience, every tear of repentance, all of it becomes part of this sacred reflection. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was for Ibn Arabi the supreme example of this perfected mirror, a human who manifested every name of Allah in perfect balance. Through his mercy, the name Ar-Rahman shone. Through his justice, Al-Adil appeared. Through his humility, Al-Latif was revealed. And through his courage, Al-Qawi, the strong, became known. In him, the divine light reached its fullest expression in human form, and thus he became the mirror through which creation can see its Lord. Ibn Arabi often used the metaphor of light passing through glass. When light enters clear glass, it takes on color and shape, yet its essence remains unchanged. In the same way, the light of the divine names flows through the human soul, giving each person a unique reflection of that eternal radiance. Some people radiate compassion, others radiate knowledge or justice or creativity. Each reflection is necessary for the world to know Allah more completely. The error, he warned, is when a person identifies only with the reflection and forgets the source. The moment we believe I am merciful, rather than mercy is flowing through me, the mirror clouds with pride and the light dims. The goal is not to claim the names, but to allow them to live through us with humility and awareness. To live as the mirror of the divine means to see yourself not as separate from God, but as his sign, not as a god, but as a reflection. Ibn Arabi taught that everything you admire in others is actually a name of Allah being shown to you through them. When you are moved by someone's kindness, it is Ar-Rahim revealing himself through that person. When you are inspired by someone's strength, it is Al-Qawi. When you witness forgiveness, it is Al-Qahhar. The wise seeker, therefore, stops judging people as good or bad and begins seeing them as mirrors reflecting different names in different degrees of clarity. Some mirrors are clean and bright, others are dusty and dim, but all belong to the same source of light. The journey of the Sufi is to polish their own mirror so that the divine may be seen more clearly through them. This process of polishing is not easy. It requires humility, patience, and a willingness to face one's shadows. Ibn Arabi said that even the darker aspects of our being, anger, jealousy, fear, contain the seeds of divine names. Anger, when purified, becomes strength and zeal for truth, Al-Qahhar. Jealousy, when transformed, becomes protective love, Al-Qahhar. Fear, when understood, becomes reverence, Al-Muta'ali. The seeker must learn to recognize the distorted reflection behind each imperfection. Every emotion, even those we call negative, is a doorway to knowing a different facet of Allah. The difference between the heedless and the awakened is not that one feels more joy and less pain, but that the awakened one sees God in both. Ibn Arabi taught that the human journey is a continuous unveiling, layer after layer of names, revealing themselves through experience. Every encounter, every triumph, and every heartbreak becomes a classroom where the divine teaches you who He is. When you are generous, you are learning Al-Karim. When you forgive, you are learning Al-Ghaffar. When you persevere through difficulty, you are learning As-Sabur. And when you create beauty or speak truth, you are learning Al-Khaliq and Al-Haq. In this way, the human being becomes a living Quran, a text through which the names of Allah are written in flesh, time, and experience. Yet, Ibn Arabi warned that this mirror of the human heart is delicate. It can easily be covered by the dust of arrogance, greed, and heedlessness. The ego, nafs, constantly tries to claim ownership of the light that passes through it. That is why he emphasized tazkiyah, purification of the self, the steady work of cleansing the mirror. When you give without seeking recognition, the heart clears. When you forgive the one who hurt you, the heart brightens. When you choose truth over comfort, the heart becomes transparent. Every act of sincerity is a stroke of polish, restoring your reflection to its divine clarity. The more polished the mirror becomes, the more light it can bear, until, at last, the seeker becomes so transparent that only Allah remains visible through them. This, Ibn Arabi said, is the true meaning of the prophetic saying, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." To know yourself is not to admire your personality or your habits, but to recognize the infinite ocean reflected within your being. You begin to see that every quality you possess, love, will, knowledge, patience, is a reflection of the divine names operating through you. You are not the source. You are the mirror. When this awareness takes root, humility blossoms, and with humility comes peace. You no longer feel the need to compete or prove your worth, because you understand that every soul reflects a different light. The competition is only in polishing, in clarity, in awareness, in surrender. Ibn Arabi believed that if every human recognized this truth, the world would be transformed. No one would look at another with envy or hate, for each would see the other as a bearer of divine light. The poor, the rich, the sinner, the saint, all would be understood as mirrors reflecting different names, each fulfilling its role in the great tapestry of creation. The prophet, he said, is the perfect mirror because he sees the light in all others. The more we see as he saw, the closer we come to the reality of al-Insan al-Kamil. In the end, Ibn Arabi's vision of the human being is not one of limitation, but of vastness. You are not a small creature begging at the edge of existence. You are the mirror through which existence itself becomes aware of its source. When you act with mercy, God's mercy becomes visible in the world. When you speak with truth, His truth is heard through your voice. When you love selflessly, His love touches creation through your heart. This is the sacred dignity of being human, to be the place where the divine contemplates His own reflection. And when you awaken to this reality, you no longer ask, "Where is God?" You begin to see Him everywhere, in yourself, in others, in every shadow and every light. That, Ibn Arabi taught, is the ultimate purpose of being human, to become a clear mirror in which the hidden treasure reveals its beauty to the world. Ibn Arabi taught that every experience in life, joy and pain, rise and fall, gain and loss, is not random or meaningless. Each is a manifestation of a divine name unfolding in time. Every event, every emotion, every encounter is a veil through which Allah speaks to His servant. The problem is not that God is silent. The problem is that we have forgotten how to listen. For Ibn Arabi, the world is not a place of exile, but a living revelation. An endless book written in the language of divine names. What we call happiness is Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate, showing His tenderness. What we call difficulty is Al-Qahhar, the Subduer, teaching us surrender. What we call loss is Al-Mumit, the one who causes endings, reminding us that every death hides a rebirth. Every moment, he said, is a message from Allah. The seeker's task is to read it with the eye of the heart. In his writings, Ibn Arabi often described life as a continuous unveiling, a sequence of divine self-disclosures, tajalliyat. Allah reveals Himself through opposites, so that the human soul may taste the fullness of His names. Without darkness, we would not recognize light. Without hardship, mercy would remain unrecognized. He wrote that the Gnostic, the true knower of God, does not divide experience into good and bad. Instead, he sees every state as a reflection of one of Allah's names. Some names are gentle and pleasing, others are majestic and severe, but all are beautiful in their truth. The name Al-Latif, the subtle one, may reach you through a moment of unexpected ease. Al-Hakim, the wise, may reveal Himself through an event that seems unfair at first. Al-Qabid, the withholder, may visit you when you feel empty, only to prepare you for Al-Basit, the expander, who soon fills your heart with light. To the awakened one, every breath is a sign, and every sign leads back to the One. Ibn Arabi believed that spiritual maturity begins when a person stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts asking, "Which of His names is revealing itself to me now?" This shift transforms the entire experience of living. When you are betrayed, it is not only human treachery, it may be Al-Adil, the just, exposing imbalance or false attachment. When you are healed, it is not luck or medicine. It is Ash-Shafi, the healer, manifesting through those means. When you are tested beyond what you think you can endure, it is Al-Qawi, the strong, calling forth your inner strength. The seeker learns to recognize these signatures, as if reading the divine handwriting across the pages of their own life. What once appeared as chaos begins to reveal hidden order. What once felt like punishment begins to feel like instruction. He often said, "Every event is a teacher sent by Allah. Those who complain fail to learn. Those who listen awaken." For Ibn Arabi, awareness is worship. When you face difficulty with the remembrance that Al-Hakim has chosen it for you, the heart opens instead of hardening. Suffering becomes a form of dialogue between the soul and its Lord. Every tear becomes a mirror, reflecting the tenderness of Ar-Rahim. The pain that breaks you is also the hand of Al-Jabbar, the restorer, preparing to rebuild you with greater strength. Even when you feel lost, it is Al-Hadi, the guide, teaching you the humility of seeking. In this way, the spiritual traveler begins to see that divine mercy is not always soft, and divine power is not always harsh. Both are expressions of the same love that shapes the soul toward wholeness. Ibn Arabi illustrated this truth with the image of a craftsman shaping a vessel. The clay does not understand the pressure of the potter's hand, yet without that pressure, it cannot take form. Similarly, the soul resists the heat of the kiln, unaware that the fire is what gives it strength and beauty. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, molds each heart through the exact experiences it needs to awaken. The Gnostic, he said, is the one who no longer resists this shaping, but surrenders to it with trust and awe. To such a one, the world ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a classroom. Every joy, a lesson in gratitude. Every wound, a lesson in patience. Every silence, a lesson in listening to the unseen. He wrote that when a person's awareness deepens, they begin to feel the divine names moving within them, not only around them. When you feel compassion rise spontaneously in your chest, it is Ar-Rahman breathing through you. When you find yourself standing firm against injustice, it is Al-Qahhar awakening in your spirit. When you forgive someone who harmed you, Al-Ghaffar has taken residence in your heart. The seeker becomes a living stage upon which the names of Allah perform their endless dance. In every emotion, in every response, the divine is knowing himself through the human mirror. This is why Ibn Arabi said that Allah is both the knower and the known. He knows himself through the experiences of his creation. In this vast vision, even pain has dignity. Ibn Arabi never told his students to deny their suffering or pretend it did not exist. Instead, he taught them to face it with reverence. When pain comes, he said, "Say, 'Welcome, O messenger of the real, teach me what you carry.' When joy comes, receive it with equal humility, for both are letters from the same author." In this awareness, life becomes a sacred conversation, sometimes whispered through sweetness, sometimes shouted through storm, and the heart that listens grows wide enough to hold both without breaking. This is the heart of the Arif, the knower, vast like the sky, steady like the mountain, alive to every nuance of the divine dialogue playing through existence. Ibn Arabi's insight also reshapes the way we see others. When someone hurts you, it is easy to see only their action, but the Gnostic looks deeper. Perhaps this person is the instrument of a name, Al-Qahhar or Al-Hakim, bringing a lesson the heart needed. This does not mean you accept injustice blindly, but you respond with wisdom, not hatred. You see that every soul is, knowingly or unknowingly, a carrier of a divine reflection. This understanding turns bitterness into understanding, and resentment into prayer. When the heart begins to see the names at work through others, forgiveness becomes natural, not because you excuse them, but because you recognize the hand of the beloved behind the veil of events. For Ibn Arabi, the greatest tragedy is not suffering itself, but to experience it without awareness. To complain is to close the door of learning. To awaken is to find the hidden treasure buried within the trial. He wrote that Allah hides his most precious gifts in the most difficult moments, because only those who seek with patience will find them. The darkness of the cave hides the light of revelation. The prison of the soul conceals the key to freedom. What the ego calls loss is often the moment when Al-Ghani, the self-sufficient, teaches you that you were never dependent on the world at all. And what the ego calls failure is Al-Fatah, the opener, preparing you for a new doorway you could not yet see. In time, the seeker begins to live in a state of deep acceptance, not passive resignation, but active trust. This is Rida, the station of contentment, where the heart bows to every decree with love. When Ibn Arabi reached this station, he wrote that he no longer asked Allah for anything, for he saw every moment as already perfect in its purpose. He said, "I do not ask him to change my state, for I know he is the one who changes me through it." This is the heart of surrender, not born of weakness, but of realization, the recognition that the beloved is both the storm and the shelter, both the wound and the healing. To live this way is to walk through life awake. The Gnostic no longer divides the world into sacred and ordinary, for he sees that every sound, every silence, every tear, and every laughter is filled with divine meaning. When the rain falls, it is Al-Razak, the provider, feeding the earth. When the night arrives, it is As-Satar, the concealer, offering rest. When death visits, It is Al-Mumit calling the soul home. The one who sees this no longer fears change, because change itself becomes the rhythm of the divine names moving through creation. Life ceases to be a problem to solve and becomes a mystery to behold. In the end, Ibn Arabi's teaching on experience is not a philosophy. It is a way of seeing. He invites us to look again at our lives and to recognize the sacred handwriting within every line of our story. Nothing is wasted, nothing is random, and nothing stands outside the divine will. Each joy and each sorrow is a note in the symphony of Allah's names, sometimes soft, sometimes thunderous, always purposeful. And when the seeker finally listens deeply enough, they hear beneath all the changing melodies the unchanging truth that every experience, no matter how painful or beautiful, is a doorway through which the Eternal speaks, saying in every language, in every moment, I am with you, I am the one you seek. In the final stage of Ibn Arabi's vision, all the names, all the experiences, all the veils dissolve into one radiant truth. La ilaha ilaha ilaha. There is no reality but the one. After the seeker journeys through the mirrors of the divine names, from Ar-Rahman's mercy to Al-Qahhar's majesty, from Al-Latif's subtlety to Al-Hakim's wisdom, they begin to see that these names are not separate forces acting independently, but reflections of a single light refracted through the prism of creation. Ibn Arabi called this realization Tawhid al-Shuhud, the unity of witnessing. It is not the intellectual belief that God is one, but the direct vision that everything one perceives is a manifestation of that oneness. The trees, the stars, the faces of people, even the trials that once caused pain, all shimmer with the same divine breath. The seeker no longer sees multiplicity, only different forms of the one reality expressing itself in endless beauty. Ibn Arabi described this return as a great ocean swallowing the rivers that once ran toward it. The rivers, the names, the attributes, the experiences, all had their distinct currents, but when they reached the sea, their separateness vanished. They did not cease to exist. They became something greater. They became the ocean itself. Likewise, the realized soul does not disappear into nothingness. It awakens into everythingness. The ego which once said I, now says he. The heart no longer claims ownership of its feelings, actions, or thoughts. It recognizes that all movements belong to the one mover. Ibn Arabi said, when the servant knows that every act belongs to Allah, he sees no actor but him, no doer but the real. In this awareness, duality fades, joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame, all merge into the stillness of divine presence. This state is not abstract or mystical escapism. It is the deepest form of intimacy. The Gnostic lives among people, speaks, eats, works, and loves, but inwardly, he witnesses only the face of Allah in all directions. When he looks at the poor, he sees Ar-Razak, the provider. When he looks at the sick, he sees Ash-Shafi, the healer. When he faces an enemy, he recognizes Al-Mu'iz and Al-Mudhil, the one who elevates and humbles, both working together for a hidden wisdom. Such a person walks through life in constant remembrance, not by forcing the tongue to repeat Decker, but because every sight and sound naturally reminds him of the one behind it. Ibn Arabi said that for the perfect agnostic, even silence is Decker, because every breath bears witness to Allah's being. He often used the metaphor of the mirror. Creation is the mirror in which Allah contemplates his own beauty. Each soul reflects a different aspect of his infinite perfection. The ignorant one stares at the mirror and thinks he sees others. The knower gazes into the same mirror and sees nothing but the one gazing back. This is why Ibn Arabi famously wrote, My heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles and a monastery for monks. I follow the religion of love. Wherever its caravans go, there is my religion and my faith. This line does not mean he abandoned Islam. It means he reached the essence of it. The recognition that Allah's presence fills all things, that every form is a doorway to the formless. When a person truly sees this, judgment dissolves, hatred vanishes, and compassion flows like water, because one no longer sees others, only different reflections of the beloved. In this state of oneness, the seeker discovers a paradox. The more they see that everything is Allah, the more humble they become. For now they realize that even their worship, their patience, their enlightenment, none of it was theirs. It was all Allah loving Himself through them. The heart bows not out of fear, but out of awe, all at the infinite subtlety of a love that hides itself in every heartbeat and breath. Ibn Arabi called this awareness Ubudiyya Kamila, perfect servanthood. It is the realization that even in the height of union, the soul remains the servant, and Allah remains the Lord. But this servanthood is not limitation, it is liberation. The ego's chains fall away, and the heart rests in its true nature, pure surrender, pure peace. At this stage, life itself becomes prayer. When the Gnostic walks, he walks with Allah's movement. When he speaks, his words flow as if from a sacred spring. When he helps others, he knows it is Al-Karim, the generous, acting through his hands. Ibn Arabi wrote that the true Saint Wali is a window through which the divine looks upon the world. To meet such a person is to feel a presence beyond personality, a quiet radiance that awakens remembrance in all who come near. They no longer preach about God, they embody His names. Their existence becomes a proof of the unseen, their silence a sermon, their smile a sign. But Ibn Arabi also warned that this realization is not the end of the path, it is the beginning of real service. The one who returns from oneness must walk back into multiplicity, bearing the fragrance of the infinite in their heart. This is the station of Al-Insan Al-Kamil, the perfect human, the one who mirrors all the divine names in balanced harmony. Such a person lives in the world not to escape it, but to bless it. They see every human being as a hidden name of Allah, waiting to be revealed. Their love is not sentimental. It is divine mercy expressed through human form. They serve without seeking recognition, forgive without pride, give without counting, because they no longer act as themselves, but as instruments of the real. Ibn Arabi's own life reflected this teaching. Though he wrote of the loftiest mystical truths, he lived with profound humility, teaching, guiding, and serving quietly. For him, enlightenment was not about withdrawal, but engagement. The one who knows the oneness of Allah must see that every moment of life is an opportunity to reflect that ownness in action. When you feed the hungry, you become a mirror for Ar-Razak. When you forgive, you mirror Al-Ghaffar. When you show patience, you embody As-Sabr. The path does not end with seeing the truth. It continues with living the truth. This is the return journey, from the ocean back to the shore, carrying within you the memory of the sea. In the state of oneness, even death loses its sting. Ibn Arabi described death not as an end, but as a homecoming, the drop returning to the ocean. It never truly left. The Gnostic does not fear death, because he has already died before dying. His ego has dissolved, and only the light of the real remains. He said, "The Gnostic dies every moment to what he was and is reborn in what he is becoming." In this eternal flow, there is no separation, no distance. Allah is not up there while we are down here. He is the breath through which we speak, the silence through which we listen, the being through which we exist. The realized soul finally sees that the journey was never toward Allah, it was always within him. And so Ibn Arabi ends where he began, in the mystery of love. Love was the reason for creation, the bridge across separation, and the truth unveiled at the end. Allah said in a hadith Qudsi, "I was a hidden treasure and I loved to be known, so I created creation that I might be known." For Ibn Arabi, this is the secret of everything. The world exists because of love. We live because love desires to know itself through us. Every heartbeat, every trial, every longing is part of this divine romance, the lover seeking himself in the mirror of the beloved. The return to oneness is not a philosophical conclusion, it is the fulfillment of this love. When the seeker finally awakens, he realizes that he was never apart from the beloved. Every step of the path, every name, every test, all were movements of that same love, bringing him home. And what remains when all illusions fall away? Silence, presence, peace. The seeker stands before the real, empty of self, full of light. The names dissolve into the named. The lover and the beloved are one, and from the depth of that union rises a whisper that contains the secret of all existence. All that is Allah. In the end, Ibn Arabi taught that the names of Allah are not distant stars scattered across the sky. They are the constellations within your own soul. You were created to reflect them. Every time you show mercy, Ar-Rahman shines through you. Every time you forgive, Al-Qahhar breathes through your heart. Every time you rise after being broken, it is Al-Jabbar rebuilding you from within. The true secret is this: you are not apart from the divine. You are a mirror in which the divine gazes upon himself. The world, with all its pain and beauty, is a theater where the names of Allah unfold, moment by moment, through you. When you finally recognize this, fear fades, separation dissolves, and love becomes your only language. So as you walk back into your life, remember, every breath whispers one of his names. Every face hides his reflection. Every moment invites you to return home, to the one who was never far. Because at the end of every path, every prayer, every longing, there is only him, the named beyond all names. Allah, the hidden and the revealed.